Imagine breaking your leg into multiple pieces, and instead of healing, it never joins back. The bone remains separated, pain becomes constant, and walking becomes nearly impossible. This wasn't a rare condition. It was a reality faced by thousands of patients not very long ago. Severe fractures often led to permanent disability, and in many cases, amputation was the only option. But then, something unexpected happened. A mistake changed everything. Not inside a high-tech laboratory, but in a remote, isolated region of the Soviet Union. Before the Ilizarov technique, treating complex fractures and severe bone infections was one of the biggest challenges in medicine. When bones failed to heal properly, doctors had very few effective solutions. Patients were left with deformities, limbs shortened or twisted, function lost forever. Infections made things even worse. Bones would refuse to unite, a condition known as non-union. And if a part of the bone was missing due to trauma, there was no reliable way to replace or regrow it. Medicine had knowledge, it had effort, but it lacked a true solution. Something fundamental was missing. Far away from major cities and advanced research centers, in a cold and distant Siberian town, worked a young and relatively unknown doctor. His name? Gavril Ilizarov. He did not have access to modern surgical tools, he did not work in a prestigious hospital, and he certainly was not part of the global medical elite. But what he had was something far more powerful: curiosity, patience, and an extraordinary ability to observe. He treated patients that others had already given up on. Broken bones, severe deformities, chronic infections, cases with no clear answers. And slowly, through repeated observation, he began to notice patterns others had missed. Ilizarov developed a simple external device, a circular metal frame, attached to the bone using thin wires and pins. It was not elegant, it was not advanced.
But it worked. But there was a small mistake, almost insignificant. But what followed was extraordinary. The mistake: a patient wearing the circular external fixator, intended for compression, pressing broken bone ends together to heal, accidentally started turning the components in the opposite direction. The result: instead of compressing the bone, the apparatus was slowly pulling the two bone segments apart. This action stimulated the growth of new bone between the separated ends. Instead of causing damage, the bone began to respond. Days passed, and something unbelievable occurred. The gap between the bone segments did not worsen. It began to fill. New bones started to form, not just healing, not just repairing, but regenerating. Ilizarov realized this was not an accident. This was a discovery. He began to study the process carefully. He observed that when bone is gradually and slowly pulled apart, the human body responds by creating new bone tissue in the gap. He called this process distraction osteogenesis. It was a completely new concept.
Instead of forcing bones together, he was guiding the body to rebuild itself. Millimeter by millimeter, day by day, the bone would grow. Not artificially, not with implants, but naturally. Blood vessels followed, soft tissues adapted, and the limb slowly transformed. For the first time in medical history, doctors could do something truly remarkable. They could lengthen bones. They could correct severe deformities. They could even regenerate bone that had been lost. Conditions that were once considered untreatable became treatable. Patients who had no hope found recovery. But like many revolutionary ideas, acceptance did not come easily. Ilizarov's work was initially ignored. Many doctors doubted him.
Some dismissed his methods entirely,
It sounded too unconventional, too different from traditional approaches. But results have a way of speaking louder than skepticism. Patients who could not walk began to walk again. Limbs that were twisted and unusable became functional. Bones that were once considered beyond repair healed completely. Slowly, the medical community began to take notice. What started in a remote Siberian clinic spread across countries, then across continents. The Ilizarov technique transformed orthopedic surgery. It redefined what was possible. Today, the principles discovered by Ilizarov are used around the world, in trauma care, in limb reconstruction, in complex orthopedic procedures. Surgeons continue to use and refine his method, saving and improving countless lives every year. And all of it began with a simple mistake, a moment that most would have ignored or corrected without a second thought. But Ilizarov did something different. He paused, he observed, he asked questions, and in that moment, he chose to understand. Sometimes the greatest breakthroughs in human history do not come from perfect planning or advanced technology. They come from curiosity, from attention, from the courage to look deeper when something unexpected happens.
And that one moment, that one small mistake, changed medicine forever.